What's up everybody, my name is Chris and today we're going to talk about the Oktava MK-012, which is a Russian-made microphone, also known a pencil type or small diaphragm condenser type microphone. This is a video in a series of videos about different types of small condenser type microphones and different price points, and like I said, today it's about the Russian one. A quick disclaimer before we jump into this video. None of the companies mentioned in this video or in the videos regarding this series are sponsoring any of this. All of these tests are done because I'm looking for the perfect microphone to put overhead into my YouTube studio and also use in other kind of environments. For the most part, however, I'm looking for something that does reject the echo and room reverberance very well, does not have a strong noise floor, and of course, I also am looking to upgrade my sound. I'm not going to cover any instrument recording with these microphones, since that is not what I'm doing. I usually only record pretty much always my voice, as well as sometimes other people's voices. Now I also want you to know the environment that I'm doing all of these tests in, and that basically is my YouTube studio. As you can see on the screen, it's a fairly large room, which has a lot of reverberance and echo. I've tried treating this room with the rugs on the floor, as well as this kind of like sound blanket curtain that is almost separating the room into two halves. This is what you get, and this is the environment that I'm filming with. I do think that this is kind of perfect because it is an imperfect environment, and to make those tests in exactly this environment I think makes a lot of sense, because not everybody can fully treat their room and have the perfect environment. Additionally, I also think that it's important to mention that all of the recordings are done with the Zoom F6, the 32-bit float wave file recording in 48 kHz. And last but not least, the normalization of this video as well as the audio tests is done to -16 LKFS, which is basically the same as LUFS. This is done with loudness control in Isotopes RX8, and you can see the settings that I used on the screen. Now that we have all that covered, let's jump into the video. If this is the first video you found from me, this is actually part of a series where I'm comparing 4 different microphones, small condenser type microphones, for indoor voice dialogue recording, and more specifically for this set here. This is the 4th video of specifically reviewing the individual microphones, the Behringer C2, the newer NW140, and the T-Bone SC410. Here, of course, in this video, I'm going to be talking about the Oktava MK-012 in this box, or more rather, the one that I'm talking into right here. This is the box which has the Omnidirectional, Cardioid, and Hypercardioid capsule, as well as the -10 dB pad. This microphone is also available in different variations with different capsules and other attachments that you can use, but we are going to talk about those things as well. Now first things first, what comes in the box and what are the specifications of this microphone? Now the Oktava microphones are already different in their packaging. They come in a wooden box, which is really nice, but also very different from the other microphones that I have reviewed in this series. Specifically talking about the newer and the T-Bone, which both come in nice aluminum cases, which are probably more durable than this wooden box right here. However, the benefit that I see in the Oktava box is that it's way smaller, and that way you can just package it into your backpack or something similar, whereas those other boxes or those other cases are so bulky that you basically have to carry them one by one, which can be annoying as well. Now this kit specifically that I have right here costs around 250 euros, and in the US you get it for around 330 US dollars as of this recording. Opening this box up, you can see the microphone body as well as the 3 capsules. There's a microphone holder and also a -10 dB pad, which you can screw between the microphone capsule and the microphone body. The microphone body itself has no other switches or stuff like that. It basically just is a metal tube with a connector on one side and the microphone capsules threading on the other one. In this kit, we have the Omnidirectional, the Cardioid, and the Hypercardioid capsules. However, Oktava also offers other type of capsules, like for example, a large diaphragm condenser microphone capsule as well. In this video, however, we are going to focus on those 3 capsules that I have right here. Looking at the microphone body, you can see that it's basically just a black metal tube, and Oktava also has the option for a silver one. Now looking at the threading of the microphone capsule connection, I would say that this is harder metal than with some of the other microphones that I have compared in this series. However, I would still be extremely careful when unthreading or threading those capsules on top of the microphone body. On this microphone, we don't have any other switches. The only way to change the microphone characteristics are attachments that you can screw between the microphone capsule and the microphone body. In this kit, I only have the -10 dB pad, but Oktava also sells a low-cut filter in other kits. Looking at the technical specifications, this microphone is advertised with a frequency response from 20 all the way to 20,000 Hertz. The sensitivity is specified with less than 10 MV/PA, and I'm not really sure what that means, but it's definitely the lowest value in the bunch that I have found. Also comparing it with this specific data. Then we also have the self noise, which is not specified by the manufacturer. Then of course we have the maximum sound pressure with 130 decibels, the output impedance with less than 300 ohms, and of course this microphone also needs phantom power with about 48 volts. In terms of measurements, the diameter of the microphone body is 20 millimeters, the capsules are a little wider with 24 millimeters, and the length of the whole thing is 113 millimeters. The weight of this microphone with one of those capsules that I have here is 83 grams. Finishing this segment, we have the box with a microphone holder that we need to talk about, as well as the microphone body, 3 capsules, and of course the -10 dB pad. There's pretty much nothing else in this box. The price of this specific kit is around 285 euros, and for the US version that would be 330 on Amazon as of this recording. There's also one smaller version of this kit, which would be the movie set, and there you get a Hypercardioid capsule, a microphone body, the microphone holder, as well as a low-cut filter instead of the -10 dB pad. That one costs around 190 euros, and in terms of the US pricing, that would be around 220. Lastly, I also want to mention that you can get this kit basically comparable to the newer NW140 with all 3 capsules, the 2 microphone holders, as well as 2 microphone bodies for a total of 530 euros, and in the US that would be over $600 US. And of course, comparing that to the newer set, which costs 67 euros in Germany and around $125 in the US, that's a mind-blowing difference. However, I do think that the Oktava also shines over the newer, but you'll see about that in the review, which I'm going to publish tomorrow. Now, what do I think about the set before we talk about the sound and all of those things? For the most part, I have to say this definitely has a stellar construction. It is a really sturdy metal build. However, that's something that the other microphones in this series also featured. However, something I did notice is that the threading on the capsules and the microphone body to connect the two feels finer, and with that also more sturdy, interestingly enough. It seems like it's harder metal and doesn't necessarily need to be taken care of as carefully as with those other capsules from the other microphones. However, I would still be extremely careful when threading and unthreading those capsules as well as the attachments. Now, something I would say is very important to talk about, and that's the microphone holder. It is actually a metal build, and that's comparing it to the other ones, which are all plastic basically. Of course, you get an adapter thread right here, where you can adapt from this really big holder or this really big threading to a smaller threading, which is more commonly used in microphone stands, for example. And if you want to mount this to something that has more of the camera equipment screwing, then you would also need an adapter here still. Now, what I found that when you press these two and you put the microphone in here and mount it that way, it holds it very, very nicely, even if you want to kind of like unbalanced or something like that. And this hinge also holds the microphone relatively well, especially if you screw this in a little tighter than it is in the beginning. At least that was the case for me. However, what I also noticed is that with this holder, the handling noise is very much transported to the microphone, and that's exactly the reason why I am using something different to hold this microphone overhead here. I have used my other contraption that I have here overhead with the other microphones as well, because it's basically just the holder that I always have overhead right there, and those types of microphones fit in there very nicely. But I think it's important to notice, specifically because it is made of metal and even transports more of the handling noises than if it were a plastic build. But you definitely have to invest in some kind of spider holder for this type of microphone if you want to use this in any kind of handhold manner, or if you want to mount it to something like a desk like I have it here, or just a small bump to the desk will be transported to the microphone with this specific holder. In a way that makes me actually kind of sad, because it's a really nice holder, but I'm probably never going to use it because of those reasons, because it transports the noises so well to the microphone, and I just have to use something different. Talking about the rest of the kit, I would say it's all very well built. The microphone grill in the front doesn't really give much. It feels very sturdy. In the back, you always have this very sharp needle that kind of connects the body with the microphone capsule, and you oftentimes see the inner parts of this microphone a little more than with those other capsules from those other manufacturers in those other reviews, because here you actually have a little bit of a kind of like a translucent part that lets you look inside of the microphone capsule. And also the same is true with the -10 dB pad, where you have a little bit of a transparent part and you actually basically can see the resistor that is used for the padding of the microphone. All in all, I would say I wouldn't necessarily toss those things just in a box randomly. It's really good to have this wooden box for all of those parts to place them in their right spots and also transport it this way. Again, I find it really helpful that it's not a huge box like with the Newer or the T-Bone, because I don't necessarily want to lug around that big of a case, and this small box right here makes much more sense than having a big, huge, bulky box again. At this point, I would say it's time to jump into some sound samples. Of course, you've been already listening to this microphone through the Hypercardioid capsule mounted overhead, because that's kind of my favorite right now, but don't tell anybody because the final review isn't in yet. But you will also find more sound samples at the very end of this video, because I didn't want to put all of them in the middle here. So let's jump into those. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Now I would say it's basically to be expected that this microphone should be the best sounding microphone out of the flock that I am comparing in my series here. But how are those characteristics showing itself, and how do those capsules compare to each other? Now of course the different capsules will sound very differently. That is in the definition of having different capsules. That's the whole point of having them. And I will probably make a video specifically about those different capsules and their specific use cases for different environments and also for different scenarios. So that's not going to be specifically talked about here. However, I want to point out a couple of the things that I found. Now starting with the Cardioid capsule, I found that this one loses the most volume as you go further away from the microphone. So this one isn't as sensitive to noises that are further away from the mic. This also does not reject the sides as well as the Hypercardioid. However, behind the Cardioid capsule, you basically sound like you're 2 or 3 meters away, even though you're very close. And this is very good, specifically for that purpose of rejecting everything that's behind the microphone. Now in the proximity test, all of the capsules are very prone to picking up the plosives if you don't be careful with microphone technique or such things. That is of course because those mics are very sensitive and especially with the plosives and the wind noises, that is going to be picked up. This is especially also bad on the side because there you are basically also blowing directly into the mic. So a wind cover is actually something that I would recommend highly for this microphone. This foam windscreen is not something that comes in the box for the Oktava. It is something that you have to purchase extra. Oktava sells one of those themselves. However, I just picked one up for about $3 and it works wonders. In comparison to those other microphones in this video series, this wind muff actually fits the microphone very well, even though it's not specifically made for this microphone. However, as you can see in the other videos, I had struggles to specifically putting the wind muff, for example, onto the Neewer because the grill of the microphone capsule is so sharp and it basically destroys the wind muff itself. So with this, I have a link in the description so that you can find this specific wind muff yourself and you can use this with the Oktava. Of course, this is probably not going to be enough if you really want to go close on this microphone for the proximity effect. Then I would probably go for a proper pop filter. Now continuing to the Hypercardioid capsule, that's the one that I have sitting up here for the entirety of this video. That's the one I find sounds actually the lowest out of this whole kit. From those three capsules, it sounds like the lows are accentuated in some way, which actually I find really pleasing. The Hypercardioid capsule picks up more from the rear, which is also obvious because that's a characteristic of the Hypercardioid pickup pattern, and the sides are very vulnerable to wind noises or wind blown into the microphone, so that you have to be really careful there. This microphone capsule is actually one of my favorites out of this kit, and it's also one of my favorites out of the whole set. And you'll find out more about that specifically in the whole review, where I'm going to show you all the different microphones and compare them one to each other. But for now, I'm probably going to keep this one up there and it's just gonna stay there. This, however, is only true for when I have the curtain up that you also have seen in the beginning of the video, where I showed you how I am preparing this room. And I will make a video about that in terms of how this capsule works in this environment with the curtain wall, and also what happens if I don't have that curtain wall and there's a big empty space behind the microphone. Then, however, the Cardioid capsule is a better choice for this environment at least. But for now, let's finish with the omnidirectional capsule, which obviously is picking up most of it all around, with the rear being the place where it sounds the worst. But from the sides, as well as the front, this microphone capsule is actually really, really nice. But of course, it also picks up a lot of the reverberance of the room, which is probably also kind of the point. But this makes for a great microphone if you want to pick up the whole room tone, for example. But this could also be an interesting choice, either hanging it from the top between two people, or maybe having it somehow stand between two people to talk from the sides into it. Of course, you are always going to get more of those reverberances because it is not honing in on the front of the microphone and trying to reject all of the other things. So for me, the use cases for the omnidirectional capsule are probably going to be limited, and I will mostly choose between the Cardioid and Hypercardioid. Now lastly, we have the -10 dB pad, and that obviously does exactly that. It reduces the volume by -10 dB, but for the overhead mounting of this microphone, that doesn't really make sense because for voice dialogue, I want to pick up everything as loud as possible. Now, if you want to use this for overheads for drums or something like that, this may be really useful, but for me, not so much. Of course, you should always also use good AD converters and a audio recorder, like for example the Zoom F6, which gives you the dynamic range for actually using a good portion of all of the sound that the microphone will give you, so that you don't have to worry about all of the noise. Now, speaking about noise, how does this one handle it? The noise floor gets more and more interesting as you move further and further away from the microphone, because then you also have to boost the signal more and more to actually get something usable sounding nice and loud. So let's listen in how this microphone sounds with 0 dB after -16 LKFS normalization, and then also with a added 15 decibels so that you can listen in on how the noise specifically sounds. Now, in my opinion and for my ears, this is also noise that sounds very usable. What I mean by that is that it does not sound in any way electronic, and that way it helps to be more natural sounding and also useful. Of course, I have done this test recording with the Zoom F6 and its very low noise AD converters, which obviously helps. But with a result like that, I would say it sounds really pleasing. Comparing this noise to other noises will be done in the other video that is coming up tomorrow. However, I will have to say that this basically sounds very similar to the T-bone noise, and obviously those two sound much better than the other ones that I have compared before. One thing that I want to note here is that the T-bone actually has a noise that sounds a little lower in terms of its frequency, and this one here sounds more mid-centered. So it sounds more like it is the mid-frequencies where the noise is laying, and with the T-bone it's more on the lower end of the frequency spectrum. Now, what do I think about the Oktava MK-012 and will I be keeping this? And I would say there are probably a couple of hints throughout this video. But I would also strongly recommend you check out the video coming out tomorrow or linked in the description in that playlist that I talked about, because there I'm going to compare this microphone to the Behringer C2, the newer NW140 and the T-bone SC410. All of those will be compared in terms of their noise floor, the handling of different rejections of side, back and all those things, and also a unlisted video of all those sound samples in just one massive video so that you can listen in for yourself for those different aspects of all of those microphones. I think that that's really crucial because it might not be as obvious which one of those microphones you want to choose. I for one have to say that I really like the manufacturing quality, the box and packaging of the Oktava, as well as its sound. The sensitivity of this microphone is great, the noise floor sounds very natural, and it also handles distances better than those other microphones that I have tested in this comparison. However, I can only give you sound samples with my voice in my environment, and your voice may be very different. I may like this microphone on my voice, you may like a different one. The only real way to know if a microphone is for you is to try it out, either in a store or get it shipped and maybe return it if you don't like it. As always with these test videos, I have all the other tests with the Oktava at the very end of this video, with different distances as well as side and rear rejection. If you want to listen to those, you can jump around in the markers and listen for all of the tests that you want to hear. So for now, this is all the information I have for you today. If this video was helpful, I appreciate a thumbs up so that other people may find this information as well. That helps out a lot for the YouTube algorithm. You can also leave any questions and comments in the comment section down below, and I will try to answer them there or make a video specifically about that. Also, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this as well as on other topics. There are tons coming on topics like the Zoom F6, podcasting, as well as my YouTube journey. Stay tuned, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out. Now all that I have to say is have a nice day, choose your microphones wisely, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao! Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59.